everybody, and welcome to The Cycle. I'm Cody Baker, a senior security analyst here at Centripetal, and today I have Jess Parnell, the VP of Security Operations, joining us. We're going to talk about the MITRE ATT&CK Framework and what it means for cybersecurity teams in the industry as a whole. So thanks, Jess, for joining today. I think having two different perspectives here of somebody who's kind of in the trenches on a day-to-day basis, as well as kind of the higher level VP executive in a company and what that means for the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. And appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Cody. It's a pleasure to be here. I think this is a great topic. This comes up all the time, right? Why is MITRE everywhere? Why is it integrated with my SIEM? Why is it, everyone talking about it, right? So yeah. Great topic.
So I'm going to kick that right off to you, Jess. Why do we see this everywhere? Why does every threat research company, why does every cybersecurity company, why does everybody try to tag in, MITRE ATT&CK Framework into their reports, into their news articles? Why is it so popular?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great framework. I think it's a nomenclature, to be honest with you. It's like command and control, or is it C2, or is it CNC? Is it like those are just some like trivial examples of some of the nomenclature that we struggled with before the MITRE framework came out. And so for me, that's a big thing, right? We're all speaking the same language. It means the same thing. If you're experiencing a new type of attack, you can just go up there and you can look at it and you can find out and speak more intelligently based upon, the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. It definitely helps out and making sure that we're all speaking the same language. And then, that's just the first impression that I have, just because I've been around so long before it. The second is, honestly, it's something that helps everyone learn and categorize these attacks. Not only like what the attack is named, but, what types of attacks are you going to see out there? And when you do see it, how do you relay this information to the people that need to take, an incident response role? And then how do you relay this information down to them in a coherent manner so that they can take, the corrective actions?
I think same from my perspective. It's really nice to have a central place to be able to kind of translate these, same attacks, but maybe just variants of them, or could be talking about two different attacks and think we're talking about the same one. I think a lot of times you think of things just in general terms. Are we talking about reconnaissance? Are we talking about enumeration? Are we talking about exploitation? They all kind of fall into the same category if it's all inbound to a network. If it's not targeted, a lot of times using the older frameworks doesn't really differentiate or maybe skip steps. And I think the MITRE framework specifically helps us highlight some of those subcategories so that people of different technical levels, people from different organizations, people that use different jargon depending on where they are in the industry, can kind of collaborate onto the same page and really understand what exactly it is we're looking at, in reference to attacks or new TTPs. Yeah.
And you kind of tipped on something before, like earlier, we had the cyber kill chain, the pyramid of pain, great tools, but, they're very simple. They're used for executives. They're used for high level people, maybe not in the industry, to kind of relay, different stages of an attack cycle or the different types of indicators of compromise and how difficult it is to use, right? So these were great tools. They're kind of like training wheels to, get into MITRE. And MITRE, it's a beast, man. I look at it and, I'm always learning something, or spotting some new box or something I didn't see before. It's involved, definitely a far cry from, just the cyber kill chain, for example. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely MITRE is much more in depth. The one thing I do sometimes miss is the simplicity of the cyber kill chain, to be honest. Reconnaissance is reconnaissance, right? I mean, what better way to just get that very message very quickly across? The one problem I have sometimes with the MITRE ATT&CK Framework is, the T105 and all of the actual direct mappings where I do have to have the resource open oftentimes because I just haven't committed them to memory to kind of map out what these reports are telling me versus the cyber kill chain. The one thing I did absolutely appreciate about it was very clear to kind of directly map to the parts of the attack. Now, obviously, that's just if you're doing general reading, general overview of an attack, which oftentimes I find is the case for a lot of cybersecurity analysts. I don't think a lot of times we need to be subject matter experts in every single phase of an attack until we do, right? And that's where the MITRE ATT&CK Framework kind of really shines is when you do need to get into that nitty gritty. You can really dive in and match TTPs and what you're seeing maybe in your own network logs with a certain attack or a certain threat actor group.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I really enjoy how they marry it up with the threat actors, the state sponsor, the APTs, the different actor groups and what their tactics, techniques, and protocols are, or procedures, however you learn that acronym. But I think it's definitely very useful. Sometimes you kind of have to look at who you're talking to. Like if you're talking to an executive, cyber kill chain, that's easy, right? You can describe it. It's very easy. Visually, there's some great visualizations or representations of that. The pyramid of pain is another really easy concept for people to kind of do. When you open that MITRE framework, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, what is this? It's like a periodic table of elements, but it's like 10 times larger. And so there's a little bit of a sharp learning curve if you've never seen it before, or if you just don't use it, or if you're not in this industry, right? And so, again, it depends on who you're presenting to, who you're talking to, which model should we bring in, and there's other models as well, but I haven't seen one any more in depth than the MITRE framework for sure. But hey, Cody, have you seen some of these integrations with like SIMs? Have you seen they always, I'm like just mystified when I go to these trade shows and or conferences and I see people that have successfully integrated like, oh, okay, well, you see this type of activity. Well, it fits this, T005 or whatever MITRE ATT&CK Framework is. I'm always, I'm highly impressed. They're able to do that. So
same. I think that's kind of the goal of most security tools nowadays is to map to this common language. That way analysts have a solid baseline of actually being able to understand what these threat intel reports are telling them versus what they're actually seeing in their SIM, and be able to better kind of connect the dots, if you will, because going from reading something on a page to seeing logs, it's not easy, right? So this SIM tools and a lot of these emerging technologies that are able to map these to the framework, I think it definitely reduces the threshold for senior analysts as well, right? I mean, we're not talking just entry level at this point. We might be talking some very sophisticated attacks and things of those nature. It just blows my mind as well. And I can't wait to see in the next 5-10 years, bucketizing these logs into kind of these frameworks, I think is definitely the structure forward. And I don't see a better candidate at this point than MITRE. I think kind of going back to the original questions, why is it so popular? Because it is so detailed, because it gives you the granularity, I think is why we see it being used so much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's a wonderful tool. A little bit of a learning curve. If you've never seen any of these attack methodologies, start with the pyramid of pain. I think it's the easiest one, right? And then obviously the cyber kill chain. That's a great, it really, I mean, it just is so true to how attacks are, how they happen, right? I mean, we look at these reports, post, incident analysis reports, and you see they do the recon, and then they go through each one of the steps to achieve their goal. It's really pretty neat. And once you get bored with it, then you move into the MITRE ATT&CK Framework, and it just, you can spend a lot of time there learning all sorts of stuff. But
yeah, I know that the way you can use the framework, we're kind of thinking about how analysts and threat intel and in the SIM side of things. On the flip side of that, I recently was introduced as to kind of okay, if your enterprise knows that you have a weak spot, say it's in the firmware or in supply chain, you can go to the framework and kind of select these areas where you know might be soft spots for your company, and kind of, as a blue teamer, kind of reverse engineer the way forward on a security solution, or tuning your internal security tools to kind of cover up for some of those places where you might have had known soft spots within the enterprise. And so that was a way of using the framework. As you said, there's a million ways to use it. That was one I saw recently that I thought was really fascinating, was, going in and saying, hey, we know that this is a blind spot to our enterprise security, right? After doing a vulnerability analysis of our company, going through this whole program, these are kind of some key areas that even after remediations and making some changes, we still know we want to improve. Maybe that's because of certain risks coming down the chain and that maybe haven't directly affected you, or whatever it might be. But proactively using the MITRE ATT&CK Framework, I thought, was a way that I personally haven't used it. I thought that was very interesting because I'm almost reactively, right? We see these reports, we read through them, we kind of go back to the framework, make sure we understand exactly the TTPs that are occurring. And then mentally you're kind of building this case of, okay, how do I find this in my logs? How can I search for these? Or maybe it's, post-mortem, an incident has already occurred and you're trying to get attribution. But to go proactively was something that I had never thought about as a way to use this framework. And I thought that was quite interesting.
I mean, it's it's so in depth that you can use it in multiple different ways, right? Proactive that's very interesting. I really didn't think too much about proactively using it. I was just mostly thinking and using it reactively, help classify attacks or relay information to other people. So that's pretty neat. That's cool.
All right, yeah. So that's the MITRE ATT&CK Framework, kind of just from a very general overview. Very interesting framework. Kind of seeing it from a little bit different perspectives between Jess and I. I think sometimes the non-technical executives can struggle with that, is something Jess highlighted. So again, thank you, Jess, for chatting with me today.
Well, thanks, Cody, for inviting me. So a lot of fun.
Cool.
Awesome work.
All right, and we'll catch you on the next one, and have a good one, everybody.